Hi everybody, let's get started on today's literacy lesson. We're starting off with a vocab blaster. We've not done one of those in a few days. Let's see if we can remember what to do. So we've got some new words to look at. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 new words. So we're going to start off with this one. I'll say it and then you can say it. Frog spawn, your turn. Frog spawn, your turn. So frog spawn are the eggs of a frog and they're surrounded by a jelly. You can see the picture of them here. These are all the little eggs. The little black dot is the baby frog growing in its little egg. And they're all in a big cluster together. So that is frog spawn. What is it? Frog spawn. Fantastic. The next word that we're looking at is gills. Gills. I'll say it and you can say it. Gills. Gills. Fantastic. And these are gills. So you can see I've got a picture of a fish and I've drawn a circle around where the gills are. The gills are an organ that allows fish and reptiles to breathe underwater. So we don't have them. We've got something else instead. And if we had gills, they might be here on our neck and they would help us breathe underwater. But we don't have them. Fish have them and some reptiles have them. The next word is lungs. I'll say it and then you can say it. Lungs. Lungs. And there's a picture of them and they're inside our chest. Now these are what help us to breathe. So we use these lungs in the air. And if you want to breathe underwater, you need gills. And the last word is nutrients. I'll say it and you can say it. Nutrients. Nutrients. Fantastic. So nutrients are something in food that's essential for us to live and grow. So I've got a picture here of lots of different fruits and veg because it's something that we need to grow. Nutrients. Now I'm going to quickly cover those words up and let's see if we can remember what they are. So the first word, we've got a picture here of the eggs of a frog surrounded in jelly. What is this called? Shout it out. Frog spawn. Fantastic. The next one, this is what fish and reptiles use to breathe underwater, and you can see that it's there on the fish. What are these called? They are gills. Fantastic. Now these are what we use to breathe. They're inside our chest. We call these lungs. Brilliant. And the last word, it's something in food that's essential for us to live and grow. Something in food. Nutrients. Brilliant. Well done. So now that we know what the words are, we're going to see if we can match them back up to the pictures. You can pause the video here and you can write the words and draw a picture to show what the word means, or you can keep listening and we're going to talk through them one at a time. Ready? Let's go. What is this a picture of? What is this a picture of? Is it a frog spawn, nutrients, lungs, or gills? What is this a picture of? Nutrients. Fantastic. The things in our food that we need to live. What is this a picture of? I've got a fish and I've got a circle around an area of that fish, an organ that that fish has. Is that frog spawn, lungs, or gills? Brilliant. Well done. They are gills. They're what fish and reptiles need to breathe underwater. This one, the thing inside our chest that helps us to breathe, is that frog spawn or lungs? Fantastic. Well done. There are lungs. They help us to breathe, which means the last one is the picture of the frog's eggs in jelly, which is called frog spawn. Fantastic start, year 2. Well done. So today's literacy lesson, we've finished writing our story. We're moving on to something new. We're going to start off by looking at time adverbials. But what are time adverbials? Can you remember? If you think you know, tell somebody in the room. Excellent. Well done, year 2. So time adverbials tell us when something happened. For example, the caterpillar turned into a butterfly yesterday. The caterpillar turned into a butterfly yesterday. Yesterday is the time adverbial because it tells us when something happened. What is yesterday? It's a time adverbial. Well done. And what does a time adverbial tell us? When something happened. Fantastic. Let's see if we can spot the time adverbials in these sentences. Remember, think about when it happened. I'm going to read the sentences one at a time and you see if you can spot the time adverbial. Last week, I took home a reading buddy. Last week, I took home a reading buddy. What is the time adverbial in this sentence? Remember, it's when something happened. Fantastic, it's last week. Well spotted, year 2. Last week, I took home a reading buddy. That was what I did last week. Last week is our time adverbial. Brilliant. Let's read the next sentence. The next day, the tadpole had grown legs. The next day, the tadpole had grown legs. What is the time adverbial? Remember, it's when something happened. Fantastic. The next day. What's the next day? It's our time adverbial. The next day, the tadpole had grown legs. Let's read the next sentence. I went swimming at 6 o'clock after I ate my dinner. What's the time adverbial in this sentence? Fantastic. At 6 o'clock after I ate my dinner. At 6 o'clock after. And the last one. I had a bath, then I put on my pyjamas. What's the time adverbial? I had a bath, then I put on my pyjamas. When did they have a bath? When did they put on their pyjamas? Then, after their bath, I had a bath, then I put on my pyjamas. Well done. We have been given a letter at school, and it's from the lady who wrote the Tadpole's Promise book. We're going to read it, and I need you to listen carefully because I'm going to ask you some questions after, so make sure you've got your best listening ears switched on. Dear Year 2, can you help me? Butterflies everywhere are being swallowed whole by frogs because they don't understand that they transform from tadpoles. Please can you help me to make a booklet for caterpillars and butterflies to help explain how tadpoles changed? From Jeanne Willis, the lady who wrote the book. So just like in the story, the butterfly gets eaten by the frog, and it's because they don't understand that tadpoles become frogs. Otherwise, the butterflies wouldn't go near the frogs. So, why does she need our help? Why does she need our help? Tell somebody in the room, why does she need our help? Fantastic. So hopefully you said something like, she needs help because butterflies are being swallowed by frogs and she wants to stop that happening. Next question. What has Jeanne asked us to do? Tell somebody in the room, what does she want us to do? Fantastic. She would like us to make a booklet for caterpillars to explain how tadpoles change. So we're going to make an information booklet explaining how tadpoles change. Fantastic. So what do we know about tadpoles changing? We need to find out all about how a tadpole becomes a frog so that we can help butterflies understand the process. What do we know already? The story can help us. How did the tadpole change? Tell somebody in the room. Remember, how did the tadpole change? What happened first? How did it start to grow? What things did it grow? Tell somebody in the room and pause the video. Fantastic. So at first, our tadpole just had a tail and a body, and then it started to grow arms and legs, and eventually it lost its tail and it became a frog. But that's all we know from the story. We don't know how scientific that is. We don't know how true it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to be scientists now, and we're going to find out what happens in real life to tadpoles when they become frogs. So I'm going to turn off my video now, and we're going to watch this little cartoon animation that explains the scientific process, the life cycle of a frog, how it starts out as a tadpole and finishes up as a frog. Ready? Let's go.
Oh, we are sorry, Mr. Frog. My cat wasn't aware that those are your eggs. Phew. Come out, little kitty. Mr. Frog has gone. Hey, friends. I'm sure, just like this kitty, you must be curious to know more about frogs' eggs and their life. So, let's hop on into the tiny world of these amphibians and learn about the life cycle of a frog. Zoom in! It all starts with a female.
So far, we've heard that we're going to learn about the life cycle of a frog. Let's practice saying that word, those words. Life cycle, your turn. Fantastic. So a life cycle is just the journey of life for a frog, just like we start off as babies and then grow into adults. And we're going to find out about the start of the life cycle.
It all starts with a female frog laying hundreds of eggs.
What do we call all these eggs? Can you remember? Frog spawn. Well done.
Generally in a pond that vary in size, colors and shapes with different species. These eggs float on the surface of the water, coated with a jelly-like substance that acts as a protective layer. But despite that, most of the eggs get destroyed due to various natural calamities like rain and wind, due to which only a few get fertilized. This mass of fertilized egg in the jelly is known as spawn. After a few days, a baby frog known as tadpole hatches out of the egg that looks more like a fish than a frog.
So what comes out of the eggs? What comes out of the frog spawn? What's it called? A tadpole. Fantastic. The character in the Tadpole's Promise story. So that's what a baby frog starts out at. It goes from an egg into a tadpole.
And feeds on the yolk of the egg from which it came out. Well, that's one hungry fella. As time passes by, tadpoles develop external gills that help them breathe under the water. Their tails begin to elongate and fins also develop. They spend their time eating plants and algae as they continue to grow for several weeks.
So far, our tadpole has grown gills. Can you remember what gills are for? Fantastic. Gills help things breathe underwater. So the gills make sure the tadpole can breathe underwater because he's not got legs or arms. He can't survive outside the water. And his tail acts as a fin to help him move through the water so that he can swim.
After a few weeks, their external gills begin to disappear and hind limbs start to appear. Then, after a few more weeks, the tadpole begins to look somewhat like a frog as it turns into a froglet. And during this stage, they develop forelimbs and lungs for breathing outside water.
So after the tadpole has grown legs and arms, it becomes a froglet. And that's what this looks like now. It becomes a froglet. Let's practice saying that word. Froglet, your turn. Froglet, your turn. Fantastic. So now it is a froglet, and you can see that it looks a little bit like a frog. It's got arms now and legs, and it's also now got lungs. And what are lungs for? Fantastic. Therefore, breathing outside of water there, what we have got. So froglets get lungs and their tail has started to shrink a little bit, but it's still there.
And on the final stage, their tail becomes smaller and smaller and eventually disappears. Then it hops right out of the water and onto dry land for the first time, where it enters the adult stage in the next couple of years to lay their eggs, and more tadpoles hatch as the cycle continues.
So we call this a cycle because it starts at the beginning with the eggs until the frog grows into an adult, and then when the frog is an adult, they can then lay their own eggs and it starts all over again. So it's a little bit like a circle and we call it a cycle. So the adult frog is the frog without a tail, and that is when they are an adult.
Trivia time! Did you know that the tadpole uses the nutrients stored in its tail as food? So until its tail is completely gone, it doesn't need anything else to eat in its journey of becoming a young frog. It's question time! So friends, today's question is, what do you call a baby frog? Do write in your answer.
Can you remember, what do you call a baby frog? A tadpole. Well done. Great listening, everybody. Well done. So now we're going to make the life cycle of a frog together, and it's going to show us how the frog changes and grows throughout its life. We need to think about what vocabulary to use to help us to do this. So, what is the first part of being a frog? Which picture do you think it is? Is it the frog spawn, the frog, the tadpole, the froglet, or the tadpole with legs? Fantastic. We start off with the eggs. And as you can see, I'm thinking about what time adverbial to use whilst I'm talking. First, it starts as frog spawn. Frog spawn. And after the frog spawn hatches, what does it hatch into? Fantastic. It hatches into a tadpole. So first, it starts as frog spawn. Then it hatches and becomes a tadpole. Then it hatches and becomes a tadpole. I'm going to write these in so that you can see how I'm doing it as I'm working along. So first, we have frog spawn. Then it hatches into a tadpole. What happens next? What does it start to grow? Fantastic. Next, it grows legs. So I'm going to write next. After it's grown legs, what happens? Fantastic. It grows arms. And what does it become? What do we call this? Fantastic. It's a froglet. First we have frog spawn, then the tadpole hatches. Next, the tadpole grows legs. After that, it becomes a froglet. What does it become in the end? Fantastic. In the end, it becomes a frog, or you could say, finally, it becomes a frog. And then the frog lays eggs and it starts all over again. So that is the cycle, the life cycle of a frog. Your activity today is to make the life cycle yourself. So the sheet is on the school website and everybody is doing the same activity today. We're all doing the same. So you are going to put the pictures in the right places. Because this is a cycle, you can start anywhere. You don't have to start with the one at the top. You can start with this one, or this one, this one, or this one. You can start anywhere. And then you need to write on the red line the time adverbial. So let's say we're starting with frog spawn, and I'm going to put it in this one because it doesn't matter which one I'm putting it in. I know that frog spawn is the first stage of the life cycle, so I'm going to write first. And then I'm going to also write what this thing is. What is that picture of? Fantastic, it's frog spawn, so I'm going to write frog spawn. First, there is frog spawn. And then I'm going to follow the arrow to what happens next. And I'm going to use my time adverbials to describe what is happening at each point in the life cycle. You don't have to cut and stick the pictures on if you don't want to. You could draw your own pictures. But everybody needs to have a time adverbial and the name of that stage of life for the frog. When we get to a tadpole with legs, you can say that this is a tadpole with legs. It's still a tadpole, it's not a froglet yet, but it's a tadpole with legs. And I'm really excited to see all the work that you do. So that's it for today's literacy lesson, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.